All right, it is 7:01. We'll call the meeting to order with Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That worrying noise is gonna put me to sleep.
Turn it on.
Clerk Cody, would you do roll call of the board, please?
Supervisor Milky,
I am here.
Trustee Bills,
Here.
Trustee Brown,
Here.
Trustee Hauk,
Here.
Clerk Cody here, Treasurer Rice and Trustee Thering are excused.
Very good, thank you. Missing 2 board members tonight, that's always kind of a bummer. But I hope they heal and are able to take care of the work that they have. That moves us on to item 4 on our agenda, approval of the agenda.
I make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Support.
Motion by Hauk, support by Bills. Any discussion on that? See none. All in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Agenda is approved. We have no presentations tonight. Public hearings. Item 6, Wind Telephone Company, DBA Wind Telephone Metro Act permit application. Mr. Stuhldreher, do you have anything you'd like to introduce on this?
This is an application by a company that is required to apply at the local level for usage of right-of-way. First step is the statute does require a public hearing, so we have that scheduled for tonight and posted. So we're good to go. You can open your public hearing whenever you'd like.
Okay. Like to take any motions regarding opening a
I move to open the public hearing for Wind Telephone Company permit application.
Support. Motion by Bill, support by Brown. We do have an opportunity as we get later into the meeting to, it is in our packet. I hope everybody's read it. I don't know if there's any comments from the board outside of that. We don't have anybody dialed in remotely, do we?
We don't.
We should vote on it, right, though?
Yeah, I was just making
Oh,
sure
okay.
we don't have any comments. I'm looking, so.
Well, to open it.
I'm
Because your motion supported to open it, but we didn't say all in favor, say aye, right?
Open
To
the
open
public-
it.
Oh,
Open the
to
public
actually
hearing?
open it.
Yeah.
My apology. I understand. I think we're all a little tired. Thank you for that. So we have a motion to open up the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Again, I'll signal that if there's public there, or anyone that would like to speak on this. Again, no one still.
No.
So seeing no public input on this, no board members want to comment, it looks like at this point, we'll close the public hearing.
7:05.
Which brings us to public comment, item 7 on our agenda. Public comments restricted to 3 minutes regarding items on this agenda. If you choose to address the public, please state your name and address for the record. With that, we'll open up public comment at 7:05.
No.
Again, nobody here present from the public and no one in remotely. And with that, we'll close public comment at 7:05 p.m. That brings us to item 9 on our agenda, report boards and comments. I'm pleased to see that we have quite a few applications for the various board appointments. Very nice to see. And with board member reports, I'd be happy to hear from our board. Let's start with Trustee Brown.
I have no report tonight.
Trustee Bills.
I attended a meeting of the Isabella County Board of Commissioners on November 1st. And of note, they approved the loan from the U.S., I believe it's the USDA, for the jail at $41,500,000. And they are going to supplement that to make the actual price of the jail with other funding. And they've already set aside some money from other things for that. They renewed they approved a lot of recurrent grants. I don't need to go through all of those, and I think that's probably, oh, the only difference in the new park software they got, which is gonna be excellent, for just same as the DNR, is that it has the capability to add the $5 reservation fee to each line item, so that you can't like reserve 6 lots for all of your friends for the weekend for the same $5. It's $5 for each campground space. So that's good. It's going to help their revenue, help pay for the software, and that is about all I've got.
Very good. Clerk Cody?
Election was yesterday. So we had, out of 7,066 voters, we had 3,756 voters vote. Sorry. 53.16% turnout. So we did good.
Is that more than normal?
Yeah.
For midterm, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. For a midterm, yeah.
well, I would have thought it would have been higher.
I mean, it felt like
Well,
it was.
countywide, it was only 59, not even 60% countywide.
Well, I think nationwide you had an increased number of people just because of the abortion, issue.
But we had a good turnout.
Yeah, I think nationally it was highest midterm turnout in a long time, so.
Since 2018.
I think it
Right.
exceeded 2018, at
Yeah,
least
it
as
did.
far as Michigan goes.
So it's,
Yeah. Pretty amazing.
yeah.
Well, as long as you brought that up, I just want to interject. I want to thank our clerk. I had the opportunity, I was cycling through polling precincts yesterday, and I was actually looking for our clerk to make sure she had what she needed, and I couldn't find her because she was moving faster than I was. But everything went off amazing. And all that you do, and the words I heard from the poll workers, I made sure I had opportunity to thank them from personally, as well as for the township for serving our community by being a poll worker. And the stories I heard from all of them, are pretty amazing. And their high regard for you, the training you provide, the atmosphere that you provide, hands down, you did a great job. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'll echo that. I was at all the stations too, and, a little bit of mass confusion at times, but
Yeah.
it was, but I went to the Commission on Aging. I was there 5:15, and the line was long, but people getting out of work. And then I went from there to Jameson, and that line was long, but like I said, that was only 15 minutes later, so 5:15, I was over there.
And I don't know for the public if they understand how long a day these poll workers put in. I mean, let alone the clerk and the support you got from staff. But the poll workers, they opened the polls at 7, and they were here till how late last night? About 12:30.
Yeah. So it was 6:30 or 6 to 12:30 for them.
Yeah, that's an amazing day for people to give
Yeah.
that much of their time.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah, and I took food. Well,
Oh, yeah.
Lisa ordered pizza, and I went around and took them pizza. And I got down here to the Commission on Aging, and they said that's the first chance they had gotten to eat all day. And
Oh,
that
wow.
was
It
like
was
a quarter
busy.
after 5. And same thing at all 3 precincts. They just said that they were working hard. They didn't have much of a chance to eat. So
Clerk Cody, how many of those 3,700 ballots were AV ballots?
Around 1450. I don't got the exact number on me.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
I think something that surprised me, and Bill and I both happened to be here at that same time yesterday, the number of people that were doing same-day registration, which adds a lot to the clerk
Oh,
position
my
because,
God.
and I believe some of the staff was here staying late, supporting our
Yeah.
clerk in that process.
I will thank all them in my end comments.
Okay.
Yeah, they did a lot. I wouldn't have been able to do it without them. Like, that's guaranteed.
Yeah. So kudos. I just want to make sure you're recognized, and we're real fortunate to have someone with your caliber of detail and ability to make it all come together. So thanks.
So for the next few weekends, when we come by here, you won't be here on Saturday and Sunday.
Maybe, I don't know.
I go to 9 o'clock mass on Sunday, and Lisa's out here.
Yeah. It's not over yet, though. It's still unofficial.
Wait, you might get a request for an audit too, so.
Oh, we normally
Yeah.
do
So,
I think it's because we're bigger in the Isabel County. City normally gets audited too, but
And the Board of Canvassers meets tomorrow, I think, right?
tomorrow, yeah, so I have to be available for that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for your report. Trustee Hauk?
I went to a road commission, there was a short road commission meeting on October 27th, and they mainly just talked about how they're closing projects down, getting things finished. Mission Road was done. They said they just had to do striping on that. They were talking about how they were going to be down here in Broomfield and Lincoln, get that done. There's a couple other projects. They were supposed to start today or tomorrow, on Rosebush Road, a 3-mile stretch where when the windmills were put in, there was a staging area on Whiteville Road, or on Rosebush Road before Whiteville, and all the heavy trucks and heavy equipment made the roads all cup and everything. So they have to repave 3 miles there. But
3 miles? Wow.
Apex is, the wind energy company's paying to do that. So, and then they're pricing projects for next year already. They figure that prices are gonna increase by at least 20%.
I will add on, just because I live over there, the Lincoln and Broomfield, they did put the striping on, I think it was today, right? It's on there now. There's a stop sign in the middle of the intersection,
Yeah.
so they haven't put the signage up, but it's
beautiful.
it's really close to
Looks-
being done.
Oh.
I don't know if have they sprayed the right of way for seed or anything yet. That they probably
They were
haven't done yet.
supposed to do that today.
Oh, maybe they did.
It's
did
that
they do
close to being done.
the extended part towards Crawford?
Yep, that's all.
It's
I'm
all
so
done?
happy
Yep.
you don't know.
Wow,
No, that's right.
excellent.
I'm
It's a
really happy
good-looking
with that.
project, there's no doubt. I mean,
Yeah.
Mission Road,
That's awesome.
Mission Road, I don't know if any of you guys have been on Mission
You
Road.
can tell that.
Yes.
But go from roundabout to roundabout, roundabout in Mount Pleasant to roundabout in Clare. I mean, my parents they've lived on Mission Road for 40 years. I've never seen that road look that good. You know, and nice wide shoulders for all of our area. It's a nice looking project.
Yeah, it's nice to see those things get all come together. Well, thank you. I don't really have anything to add at this
Oh.
point. EDA didn't meet. Yes, Trustee Bills.
Congratulations, Trustee Hauk, for
Oh.
your election results.
Thank you.
Oh,
No, it's very appropriate from my perspective. All right, that brings us to consent agenda. Just as a note, if it wasn't obvious from your packet,
lot of stuff.
quite a few items were kind of put in there so that we can dedicate our discussion tonight with some of the new business items. So I wanted to point out just a couple things. We did ask at a recent meeting, I believe it was our last one, the board governance policy 4.3.3, to have just a little bit of language adjustment. I hope you had a chance to see that. We've already discussed the wind telephone company, public hearing. Otherwise, it's pretty standard consent agenda. And I believe Trustee Brown had warrants. Those all look good. Happy to entertain any motions regarding consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support?
Motion by Hauk, support by Bills. Any discussion? Clerk Cody.
do it as a roll call.
Fair enough.
What's that?
Roll
Any-
call, just
Oh,
because there's,
Because there's,
you know,
Any other comments? Clerk Cody, would you do a roll call regarding the motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Supervisor Milky,
Yes.
Trustee Bells,
Here.
Trustee
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Trustee Hauk,
yes.
and Clerk Cody, yes.
Consent agenda passes unanimously. That brings us to our new business, item 11 on our agenda. Last meeting, we had a first reading for adoption of the cross-connection ordinance update. Tonight on our agenda is second reading, and I'd be happy to entertain any motions regarding this.
I make a motion to conduct second reading for and adopt the proposed cross-connection ordinance update number 2022-06.
Support?
Motion by Bill, support by Cody. Any comments? And just for the public's information, we did review this information. This is second reading. So at our last meeting, we had the first reading. This board had the opportunity to go through this. So if you don't hear a lot of comments tonight, don't take that as that we're not doing our due diligence in looking at this. But I am happy to give anybody the floor if they need to.
I'm all
All right.
set, Supervisor.
Minor changes. You know, minor, so.
Yes. So, Clerk Cody, do we need a roll call on this, or
Sure.
let's have it?
Supervisor Milky,
Yes.
Trustee Bells,
Yes.
Trustee Brown,
Yes.
Trustee Hauk,
Yes.
and Clerk Cody, yes.
Second reading and adoption of the cross-connection ordinance update passes unanimously. That brings us to item B on our agenda, resolution to approve the Public Act 152 having to do with Public Funded Health Insurance Contribution Act for the benefit year of 2023. If you remember, we've had this in the past, but I'll let our manager introduce this if you have words to add.
The only thing I will mention is that the recommendation, if to approve the recommendation, it requires a 2/3 vote of the governing body, which tonight means a unanimous vote's needed to approve it. And be happy to answer any questions. This is an annual item.
Any questions for our manager? Do you all remember going?
So
Yeah.
ours is gonna be 10 or 11% for the employee at this point.
Right now, our cost share is 90% employer, 10% employee. That is below some of the thresholds that we're allowed to have absent Board of Trustee action, which is the reason we're bringing this forward tonight. And we are in the middle of labor contract negotiations. That's an item, the cost share item is something that we've continued to work with our partners to see how best we can share those costs.
I just have a, just a comment. It seems like the county, and we're not the county, I know that, but the county seems to be moving towards having the employees pay a little bit more. Are we working on that too? As far as
Yes.
percentage-wise?
Yeah, when I started here, which was 2017, it was, the cost share was 100% employer, 0% employee. We are now at 90-10, and we're continuing to work that issue.
Thank you. I thought we were. I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, it's been incremental over time.
Sure.
Any other questions?
Mr. Stuhldreher, didn't you start here in
It
2016?
was 2016.
I was thinking
'cause
that
he
too.
started when I did. I just didn't want to correct him. I was like, well, it's only a couple months. You know,
Okay.
Time flies when
he
you're
was
having
going
fun.
first full year is what he
We
said.
are getting older. We are getting older too, Mark.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, July of 16 is when I started.
But yeah, you're right though. But when you started, and then the next year, 2017, we had talked about
Yeah.
that at budget cycle. We had talked about reducing it from 100% to, I can't remember what it was, 96.4 or whatever. It's on here, whatever.
All right, if there's no further questions for our manager, happy to entertain any motions regarding this.
I'll motion to approve The attached resolution opting out of the employer health care benefit plan contribution limits as allowed under State of Michigan Public Act 152 for the benefit year of 2023.
Support.
Motion by Cody, support by Hauk. Happy to have any discussion on this. We do not have a full board. Do any of our trustees have any issues with the fact that we're just 5 members tonight?
No?
I have no
We
problem
should
with
do a
that.
roll call just because
Okay.
we're fine.
Yeah.
Any other discussion, thoughts on it?
No, sir.
No.
All right, hearing none. Clerk Cody, would you do a roll call of the motion to approve the Public Act 152 for the benefit year of 2023?
Supervisor Milky,
Yes.
Trustee Bills,
Yes?
Trustee Brown,
Yes.
Trustee Hauk,
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes. All yeses.
All yeses, passes unanimously with 5 votes. And with that, we will move on to item C on our agenda, new business. Discussion regarding the 2023 budget recommendation. And with that, I know our manager gave us kind of a summary at our last meeting, but I wanted to make sure our manager had an opportunity to expand on that if he felt like you needed to, and then we'll kind of open up the board for questions, comments, et cetera, et cetera.
I do not have anything to add. I think moving right into discussion and questions would be appropriate.
Very good. With that, I'm happy to let's have our discussion, questions.
I will say that Sherry Teal, our finance director, is with us remotely tonight.
Oh.
Hi, Sherry.
I don't know which one.
I'll just add, I did meet with our manager independently, which I often try to do with the budget stuff anyways, because it happened to be during our one of our regular meetings. And I do have a list of questions. So I got answers to all my questions, but many of them I'm going to want to ask for the sake of the public and for the sake of you all hearing the answers to those. But if somebody has the desire to go first, I'm happy to let them jump in.
Go
I
ahead.
think it'd be better if you went first since you already have the answers.
Well,
That way
okay.
we might get the answers to some of our
Okay.
questions in the meantime.
I'm happy to do
There
that.
you
I'll
go.
kind of go in the order in which I did with our manager before. So I may bounce around in this a little bit. You've got your budgets in front of you, so I'll try to reference pages.
Do you have questions too?
First question I asked was just in the general section at the beginning, which is kind of the summary of the budget. It's on page 2. I'm looking for where this is at. Right, kind of in the middle of that page, it says various drain special assessments at large are budgeted at $60,000.
Mm-hmm.
And my question to our manager on this, this is really speaking to my lack of education on some of this. I didn't understand really why we'd have 60,000, with the exception of that we may have property that's in a, say, a drain assessment district that we would have to pay for. So my question really was, is this all because of property we own, or what? And actually, Mr. Stuhldreher, would you mind answering that again? What I kind of got at on that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. The drain commissioner has the authority to create drainage districts, and also the authority to levy a special assessment on property owners within that drainage district. And the drainage district will, it's a, I'll call it a piece of geography. It's identifying an area of drainage that drains into a county drain commission or commission-owned and operated drain, stormwater management, basically. And so all the parcels within that drainage district through a formula that the drain commissioner has. It assesses each of the property based on the calculated benefit that each of those parcels will receive from the stormwater management. In addition to the per parcel amounts, there's also a thing in the code that's referred to as at-large benefit. And what it basically says is that, yes, all the properties within the drainage district are receiving a benefit, but if you think about it, everybody in the township and in really the county also has a benefit. And they call that benefit at large because it's not specific to a particular parcel of property. And that at large component is the responsibility of the general taxpayers of the, in this case, the township. At large benefit is applicable to cities and counties. And so there are 9 or 10 drainage districts and drainage special assessments that are on the books at the drain office. And in 2021, we paid a total of $50,500 for our at-large component. And the drainage names, you'll recognize some of these: the Beltnick drain, the Buford drain, Fitzgerald drain, Mission Creek drain. That was added last year. And that drain, that at-large component alone for the Mission Creek drain is $25,000, almost half of what we paid last year. Big project. And so we're budgeting $60,000 for that expense in 2022 for the at-large component. We also, as a property owner, receive a tax bill, if you will, that we'll have. While we're exempt from having to pay a tax millage, special assessment is not a tax, it's a special assessment, and the tax exempt entities, whether it's a parcel of land that this building sits on or a church sits on, they have to pay the special assessment. So we do pay our relative benefit share on tax bills in those cases where we own property. I hope that explains the at-large drain component.
Yeah, and for me, it was the at-large part that I really wasn't aware of. I knew of the assessment districts and each parcel being responsible for a portion of that through their taxes, et cetera.
I didn't know about it either.
Well, thanks. So it's not just me then.
No, it's not
Okay.
just you. I don't know a lot, so.
So I thought that was worth lifting up. The next item was more really just a comment. You know, I've been through this budget process a number of times, and I'm always looking at ways to make this a friendlier tool or document, not only for us, but for the public. And so I found myself, as I was going through, I began right at the beginning, like we are now, with kind of the summary presentation of what the budget contains. And I found as I got to like sidewalks and roads, it just says this much associated for sidewalks, this much associated for roads. I'm immediately drawn to, well, I want the details of that. I want to know what sidewalks we're talking about, what roads we're talking about. And that we got into later in our discussion, but my suggestion to our manager and finance team was it'd be helpful if where we have a line item where it says, you know, this much is budgeted for these kinds of things, if it referenced what department within the budget those dollars are, so that it would be easy to jump to that department and go, oh, that's right here in the general fund, it's Department 326.
Excellent.
So it's kind of a map into the detailed budget of where to look for it. So that was more of just a general comment.
I like that.
Make it easier to kind of.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I did miss the meeting when we, few meetings ago when we had the ARPA discussion, so I kind of went through that with our manager. Just note again, at this point, the budget's recommending $500,000 for Pump Station 1 through the Sewer Enterprise Fund, and then $200,000 regarding the High Service Pump Project on River Road for the Water Enterprise Fund. So I just had discussions with our manager on that. I will add that Proposition 2202 did pass the state yesterday, which does change our election laws. I wasn't asking that we make any, with our manager, I had discussions with him about it. I said, I'm not asking that we make changes currently into this budget because we don't know the full effects of what that's going to have on the clerk's department, but it's going to have an effect. And that, yeah, and I see our clerk nodding. And so I just wanted to, as I put it to Mr. Stilldryer, was want to make sure we keep that on our radar because we may need to adjust once we figure out what that means as far as the resources we're going to need in the township to effectuate Prop 2.
Wouldn't that just be a budget amendment?
Yeah, and that's my thought, is that we don't need to deal with it now because we don't really know what that means. But I only lifted that up because we may have to have that discussion later. This was the other suggestion that I had, not a question as much as a suggestion, but just context-wise, I write software for a living, so I'm a bit of a nerd. So when I see in the budget information for BS&A, it's more curiosity. I want to look at how we're budgeting for software agreements, support, those kinds of things. But it's a good example of the BS&A software, the actual cost to our taxpayers to use that is sprinkled throughout the budget. Right? You can find it in the building department. You can find it in the enterprise funds portion of the budget. You can find it in the finance side, and so on. And so to be able to identify what is the true cost of BS&A, and I'm not suggesting I'm not supportive of BS&A because it's a great tool for our township, but what is that cost to us as a whole? And that's hard to see in the budget when you have to go to 8 spots to find it and do the math and total it up. And so another suggestion that might be helpful, if it's possible for the budget, is some cross-referencing in their footnotes that if you're going to list something like BS&A, just put a note maybe in the summary where say this much for BS&A. Here's all the different departments again that this is in, right?
Well, anecdotally, if you don't mind if I interject.
Please, no.
I read all these MTA emails with all the people's comments and everything. Read them every day. There's many too many comments. But throughout the last 2 years, what I noted is that when people ask about software, the overwhelming majority say, get BS&A and forget about it because it's the best, the support is the best, and there's nobody even close. So I think we're just lucky to be able to afford that. And it's costly. Everybody says it's really pricey, but hey, you got to have what you got to have.
Right. Yeah, and I want to be clear that I'm not expressing lack of support for it. Just another way in which line items like that are split across multiple departments, that if the budget can reflect that, then it's easy to, like the supervisor's salary, for example, is in more than one department. And if you want to ask, if the public wants to ask how much is the supervisor making, if you go look in the budget, you'll find a line item, but you're only seeing half of it because the other half is somewhere else.
Okay.
Same with the manager's salary.
I was curious about that because I said, well, that's not right. That's not what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, and that's not intentionally misleading, but I think it would be clear to the public and to the board members if those references were there when something's split like that. So that was just a general comment. And then I kind of went through the sidewalk and road projects. I know we went road project-wise, we added some that were not in our budget for 2022 that made sense, like the Broomfield road extension towards Crawford. And so while we added that, when I look at the total budget amount for roads, it's not great in 2023. And this township has typically, roads are a top priority. And so question to our manager was, why are we only budgeting this much for roads? And I don't know if you'd like to, I could try to paraphrase, but if you'd like to correct what I say. But the reality is, that's what, at this point, the road commission is recommending to our township that we do. I mean, we've done a good job of keeping our roads in good shape. We've stayed on top of it. And maybe as a result, and maybe Trustee Howe can speak to this a little bit, we've done a good job with that, and so there's not as much to do this year as we might otherwise have. Do you have thoughts on that, Trustee Howe?
Well, I mean, there's always, you can always do projects. I mean, I still think South Lincoln Road, south of Broomfield needs to have something, or, yeah, south of Broomfield needs to have something done on it. It's terrible shape.
Manager Stuhldreher, do you think I misrepresented your comments at all?
No, our budget recommendation for the roads is a result of discussions, communication with the administration of the road commission and with the administration of the road commission in terms of what roads they're going to be working on next year, which ones are in the township, which ones we should think about engaging cost sharing with, and those are reflected in this document.
Thank you.
Right, and they're just going out getting estimates now for next year.
That's not to say that's not in conflict with Trustees Howe's
Yeah,
comments.
agreed. Yep. On page 10 of 12 in the general budget, this is regarding the planning commission. I was a little confused. It's about a quarter of the way down the page. It's listed as Department 701-801, Professional and Contractual Services. And I was looking through the line items within this, which is the footnote, and I was confused a little bit because I know Planning Commission is taking on the master plan as page 10 of 12 in the
Thank you.
general.
Sorry about that.
That the Planning Commission is looking at the master plan per state law, and I was surprised at the amounts I saw in here. So if you look, there's a stormwater management ordinance update, consulting services, and how I interpreted this was that was $75,000, and I was confused here a little bit because the master plan update project doesn't seem to really, how I was reading it, didn't seem to indicate funds associated with it. That whole department, sub-department, is $106,250. So I was really just asking for clarification, and this was something that you were going to look further into. Part of it was the presentation of this. Would you like to just clarify this?
The $75,000 is earmarked for the master plan update. It's based on estimates from the department director who, in a prior life, did this as a consultant for a living. So I think they're pretty good estimates. And it's also budgeted in anticipation of what I'll describe as a full-blown review, rewrite of the master plan. Every 5 years, the Planning Commission has to at least take a look at the master plan, be able to say, we looked at it, we don't need to make any changes, or we looked at it and we're going to make some changes. And as you go through that exercise, and the extent that changes are more throughout the entire existing document, the job just gets bigger and bigger. So it's consultants, and there's quite a bit of money required for postings, notices, and that kind of thing. So that's included in the 75 as well. So that is primarily only for the master plan.
So regarding the stormwater management ordinance update then?
That's part of the 106, and we just don't have a line item for that amount in here due to presentation.
Okay. Yeah, so I just wasn't sure where some of those numbers were lining up with the line items there, and I wanted clarification.
So
Okay.
every 5 years, we spend $75,000 or thereabouts to look at the plan?
There's an anticipation, well, every 5 years, we have to, by law, look at
Yeah.
the plan.
Yeah.
And if the planning commission is anticipating a full-blown review and rewrite, it can cost that much money to do this.
Okay.
So in,
And a lot of times, Township's been very good about keeping their plan updated. When we updated it last 5 years ago, the one that was then in force had been in force for a while, but not, I think every 10 years you have to do a bigger, deeper dive into the master plan. But a lot of communities that you can look at their master plan and it'll be 20 years old. And we don't have that problem here. And the master plan is very important. It doesn't get as much attention as it deserves, but the zoning code gets a lot of attention. But but a primary reason to have a zoning code is to effectuate the master plan.
Thanks.
It's a big deal.
and I was a planning commissioner the last 2 times, so 5 years ago and 10 years ago. And I think we actually spent more 10 years ago, and then I don't remember exact numbers. I'm thinking it was closer to like 60,000 maybe 5 years ago. My memory may not be accurate on that, but
And the dollar is not the same value as it was then.
right, true.
You know.
But it is a great exercise as a planning commissioner. I always went to the master plan. Zoning ordinance is important, and you learn that, but you always want to know, especially with like rezonings and home occupation. I mean, all those kinds of things. You want to look, does this fit the vision for our township that the public has set out to create? So, and I really like the master plan we have now, so I'm curious to see what the planning commission comes up with. All right, and then I think the last item that I talked about with our manager was, this is in the fee schedule. Second page, it's the tab called Other Information. Begins the Community and Economic Development Department. Second page near the bottom talks about home occupation permits. And this again is maybe some of my ignorance or not always remembering what we've done as a township in the past. But I was here when we implemented laws regarding medical marijuana, and that was something that passed Michigan. I'm trying to remember what year that was, 2012 or 14 or something. But that obviously has changed quite a bit in Michigan. And so we have an ordinance on the books, and for some reason my memory was that we had gotten rid of that ordinance because it doesn't quite apply the same way it did prior to the 2018 proposition that passed in Michigan. And so I was asking about that medical marijuana caregiver home occupation permit. And I don't want to even try to paraphrase your response on this, but I was really asking, does that even make sense? Do we still have that ordinance on our books? So, Mr. Stuhldreher?
I thought that was interesting too.
Okay. Mr. Stuhldreher, would you mind commenting on this?
We do have a marijuana ordinance on our books. It is functionally obsolete. We need to go through an exercise to remove it from the ordinance book. That's one. The 2018, where they created laws that allowed for dispensaries, cultivation facilities, security licenses, testing licenses, all of that. That's the new marijuana law, and that has provisions in it where, for instance, if somebody wants to open up shop in the township, we have to, prior to that, have taken action to allow those facilities to exist. Having said that, there is still on the books, unrelated to our old ordinance, a medical marijuana caregiver is still allowed to grow a certain number of plants in their home for the care of, I'll call it, their patients, their customers. And this fee recommendation of $325 for a home occupation that involves the growing of the marijuana plants in your own home, not a commercial facility in your own home, is for that business should one want to open up, and they're allowed to open up, and it has nothing to do with we would not regulate them like we would a commercial establishment. So that's what this is for.
And I believe other history in this too, just kind of semi-related to this. The city's opted into the state law to allow dispensaries within city limits. Township chose to opt out of that essentially, right, on the previous board, is that correct?
We didn't do anything.
We never,
Did
We
anything?
just
Yeah, we just
dropped it.
You have to
Don't-
opt in?
didn't
you have
talk
to
about
opt
it.
in.
You have to opt in, okay.
So I have a question.
Just don't
Uh,
talk about it. It's what we-
Isn't it
Decided.
allowed, is this medical marijuana caregiver potentially receiving money from their clients for this marijuana? Is that what's going on? Is that why we're,
Yeah, just like any other home business.
okay.
Yeah, there's a transaction. I'll pay you for, I don't know, maybe childcare that's going on in the home.
Yep,
We've issued permits for that. And in this business, it would be money in exchange for medical marijuana.
gotcha. Okay, I have a better understanding now. Thank you.
Yeah, so part of my question on this was just trying to re-understand where we were with all of this, because it's changed so much over the last decade. There were two other issues I brought up. Well, actually, I didn't bring this one up with our manager, but I didn't spend a lot of time in the EDA portion of the budget, but I'd like to highlight it in that the reason I didn't spend time with it is I spent time with it at the EDA, going through that process with the EDA, recommending our budget as a board to this board. And I'm not going to go through it with you, but I want to make sure you have an opportunity to go through it. And we can direct questions to, I'm assuming we can direct questions to Mr. Nanny on this.
Sure.
And I may be able to answer some, because I have a fairly good understanding too, but obviously Mr. Nanny will know a lot more too. All of the projects that I saw, as I went through it, were part of the new plan that we laid out as an EDA when we renewed those EDAs, both the east and the west. So I mean, they're all part of that plan that we spent the last year and a half articulating as a
The
EDA
really
board.
pretty one that we got a copy of?
Yeah.
I know.
So I just want to lift it up separately. It is a separate board, but we as the Board of Trustees have to approve or not the recommendation from the EDA. Last thing that I had, if you remember last year's budget, something that came out of our ends had to do with energy efficiency, stewardship. Some of the ideas we're looking at ways to help defray costs at like the waste processing facilities, maybe wells, those kinds of things. And while I know some work was spent on that, and we budgeted money specifically for that this year, I didn't see that in this budget, and I was, personally, I was kind of liking to see some of that be retained within here, so that we keep our eye on the ball and try to look at ways to do that. Our manager did indicate that some steps have been done recently, and they've done some work towards this, so would you like to speak to this as far as what the administration has done so far with it?
We've done some work on developing a scope of service to hire a consultant. That's about all the farther we got, I believe. And unless I'm wrong, and either Ms. Smith or Ms. Teal can correct me, We do not plan on doing any more work on that this year. 6 weeks left. And I don't believe there's any money budgeted in '23 for that.
There was a note though about that was budgeted for this year for the studies, and then something like 12,000 was being carried over for the next year. You read on that? I don't know where it is. I literally don't know where that is.
Oh, you saw
That common statement will be for several projects that are crossing fiscal years, but it does not apply to this one.
So I guess why I lifted this up is that's one of the things I was looking for in the budget that I didn't see. Maybe this board feels differently about it now. I wanted to lift it up because it was still important to me that we look at providing resources to take forward steps in some of this as far as energy stewardship and efficiency, and ultimately, hopefully, saving maybe either money or environment, whatever it is. So I guess I wanted to lift this up to the board for any discussion on it. How important is it to
it's
this board?
extremely important to me. And I also will just say one more thing that I have said 3 times. I think we should retrofit all of our lights to LED. These should be done right away. I don't see that as a huge cost in the scheme of things. And I think that that's something we should be thinking about. I'd like to see it in the budget. It's something that pays for itself.
I do know you've commented to me on this. Would you like to jump in?
Next Thursday, we'll be replacing over 100 lights in this building with the LED lights.
Excellent. I'm
So-
very excited about that.
And where's that money coming
It's coming from the general
from?
taxpayer.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, probably out of the
And
line item that, excuse me, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt you.
I don't know where the money's budgeted in 2022, but
Okay.
we budgeted for it, and if we have the money. And so we're doing that next week. LEDs have been put in throughout all the facilities with a few minor exceptions. The payback is 2 years.
Yeah, I believe it's 2 years, plus we're also getting a rebate from consumers for part of the cost.
Yeah.
We've done the LED change outs in most of our buildings, and in most of the cases, we've gotten a rebate from consumers. We were waiting for that program to come out. Again, it did. Black Electric will be changing the lights in the Township Hall so that we can take advantage of the program through consumers.
I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, so do I.
And-
Excellent,
you.
excellent work.
Yeah, and
Excellent.
2-year payback is, that's pretty amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's what the gentleman from the county said too when they did talked about their retrofit a month ago.
It helps a lot that you get some money back from consumers for that
Yeah.
payout, you know.
They got a $3,000 rebate.
Did they say anything like the life expectancy of the bulbs?
They did, I know they're longer, because we change these bulbs all the time that are in here
Yeah.
now. They're longer, I don't remember exactly what it was, Jeff, but they are longer than
I can tell you, I've had them in my office for probably 18 months, haven't changed one bulb. I mean, and you change fluorescents all the time.
and that's one of the things that we
ballast.
took into account when we did the payback number, because we got, we know how often we're changing these bulbs and what these cost, and,
Labor costs
yeah.
is the main
Nice.
thing.
Yeah, true.
So I wanted to bring this up for discussion because I felt like you, Trustee Bills, this is an important item to me, and I'd like to see, and I don't know what the plan should be other than I want to make sure we have resources available so that if there's opportunities for the township to have these kind of cost savings for our taxpayers and be responsible stewards of our environment, that we have the resources to implement it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it makes sense.
By far, our largest energy expense is electricity for the wastewater plant.
Yeah, I was just gonna look at that.
And 70-some thousand dollars, something like that. And we've looked at this, and you all make policy. I'll concede that at the front end. Administratively, we're not too interested in chasing things just because they have this label of green or energy efficient, or it's a pretty young industry, actually. We know that without the acquisition of more land, there's not enough space around the wastewater treatment plant for all the solar powers you're gonna need. So, what do you do? There might be other forms of energy. I don't want to recommend to the township to be the leader on some of those, because we're talking about a wastewater treatment plant. We're not talking about a personal car,
Right.
I think, as a matter of course, do a pretty good job on, we don't leave lights on, we don't, the motors, they only run when they need to, those kinds of things. I'm not sure I want to rely on a Union Township-centric power production facility to operate what we operate. Y'all remember the windmills out there?
Yeah, they did.
That was all just for fun.
It cost probably more to tear them down than they produced.
It was trying to make a statement that was probably sold in a particular way, but they don't work. They might have contributed de minimis amounts back to the. I ended up taking them down. So I just say all that because where we're really going to find the savings is in the energy that is required to operate our water and wastewater treatment plants. And then when it comes to this building, energy efficiency and all that, we're in the process of doing work to determine what, if anything, we can do to this building in terms of rehab. Should we be thinking about a new building? So I kind of hate to get too much time and energy into an energy efficiency study for the township with all these other things up in the air, when the biggest amount by far is running the wastewater treatment plant. And I know it's a lot of money. And I also think, and again, I've already conceded the point at the beginning, that if you wait long enough, the power that's going to be coming into this building or the wastewater treatment plant from Consumers Energy or DTE is going to be generated from renewable sources anyways.
Yeah, to that point, meeting with consumers and DTE recently, in their presentations, they're far beyond what the state requirements were to go to renewable resources for energy. They're far exceeding that, and coal is going to be retired here in Michigan if it's not already very soon. I think there's one plant left, maybe, and even natural gas, which has some of the global warming gases in it, is being weaned off as we get more and more wind and solar is obviously overtaking wind at this point.
Need a
Well,
water
I
wheel
just
out
heard
there
on the
where
news
the water gets discharged from
yesterday
No.
that coal was the most coal ever was used last year. So,
Really?
because China is bringing it online. big
Oh,
time.
right.
Allegedly. I don't know this stuff
Yeah.
for a fact. I just hear it.
But we are very conscious of the expense side of things. We pay for electricity. Question is, how is the electricity produced? And some of the electricity that we're paying for right now, this very instant, is being generated from renewable sources. The electricity is being created with renewable sources, resources that consumers has in their network.
I agree, but I think, and I hate to suggest that he is thinking the same way I am, but I think what Trustee Houck and I really wanted was to save us money instead of where it necessarily comes from. And it do two things with the same coin, But that's what I was thinking, more along that line. That's why the lighting project I think is
it's great.
super,
Yeah.
super, 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 and I am really happy.
So we are sensitive, and
Yes,
You know,
sir.
next Thursday, they're gonna be in here switching out 102 of these things.
That's
cool.
wonderful. I love it. Thank you so much.
Can I add something?
Please.
And just so you're aware, most of you probably aren't aware of this, but about 5 years ago, my department partnered with Consumers Energy in a program. They had a consultant that came in and looked at our water plant and our wastewater plant. We did not go as far as the lift stations, but we did look at our two biggest energy consumption users. And we looked at things, we spent a year working with this consultant and Consumers Energy. And we looked at things like, are your pumps running efficiently? When should you be running we have large blowers at the wastewater treatment plant that are huge users of electricity. When should those be running? Are they running efficiently? Are there problems? Because you can tell from pump curves and different things with this equipment if it's running efficiently, if there's things you need to do to it that will help save energy. So we went through, for about a year, we worked with consumers and this consultant, and we got a report, and we initiated a lot of the items in there. We found out we had pumps that were not running on pump curves. We had some of that corrected. We did work with our SCADA system so that certain things would run at certain times of the day when the power consumption and costs are down, because consumers charges, you get, there's times when you're in a peak, when you're not. So we did a lot with that. We've put VFDs on a lot of our bigger equipment, which saves money. We also, when we make those upgrades, if consumers has a program, we apply for those programs and get those refunds. Sometimes they're not a lot, but sometimes they are more money. So we are conscious about that, and we do those things. So just so you are aware that we are conscious of that, and we do try to do as much of that as we can. But then there is also the other side of it. All of those things cost a lot of money to do, so you have to weigh that as well. If you're not going to have a payback for 100 years, maybe that's not the best option for your money at that point.
Yeah.
So we look at those things.
Thanks for that information. That's really valuable to me.
And when we did that study with consumers, we were surprised by a lot of the things that we found out, not only to save energy, but just to run our facilities more efficiently. And we found equipment that, we needed to do some work on or have work done on, and we got those things done.
Nice.
Well, that was kind of my list that I wanted to go through. I'll admit, I haven't spent all the time that I want to spend with this budget yet. I did a quick cursory glance through it. I did one dive through it, and those are the questions I came up with. So I know we have a public hearing coming up. We'll have another opportunity at the end of November if we have additional questions or comments. But I'm open up to anybody else that would like to cover any of the items we already discussed or something else.
On the EDA, East EDA, the money that we're spending on Packard and Corporate Drive, what is that gonna be for?
I'll tell you what I know, but Mr. Nanning's probably better to answer. Let me look. Can you reference where that's at here?
Well, I just grabbed it off of the summary.
Oh, okay.
Second
What I
page.
know needs to be done there, there's a few things, and I'm not sure I can speak without looking at the line item again. But drainage was an issue there, and then the road itself. And one of my questions, we had some question not too long ago about ownership of some of that. Are you
Yeah.
familiar with that?
Oh, yeah.
And I brought that up in our EDA meetings. Has that been resolved? And it sounds like it's made some good progress. But I think it's really to begin to shore up the infrastructure there, meaning roads and drainage, so that those properties become more tractable, or attractive, excuse me.
On page 3 of 3, it says, Corporate Drive east of Packard Road, paving drainage improvements for ICRC acceptance.
Okay, yes, my memory wasn't too bad from that then.
$200,000.
Does that help
That's,
answer?
well, it's 200,000, yeah.
Same is true for Packard, and $200,000 is gonna get a road, either one of those, up to speed where we could approach the
Business.
road commission
Yeah.
for acceptance. But over time, over a few years, our goal is to
Extend that.
get those roads in a shape where then we could approach the road commission to turn those roads over to the road commission. And we can't do that unless they're up to their standards to begin with.
Sure.
So this is like step one of trying to, there's a lot of industrial related type of property that we could take advantage of, but we just don't have the infrastructure to market it very well.
And just to comment on that, I mean, this is one of the items that I was really excited about, because we need more industrial property within our township.
And that's what that area would be back
Right.
there if we could
Yeah.
ever extend Corporate Drive.
Right. Easy access to the expressway from there. I mean,
Yeah.
that property up there needs to be usable for its intended purpose.
Another question I have is, we've been appropriated, or we're gonna receive, correct me if I'm wrong, 1.424 million in ARPA funds. How much of this budget are we looking to use? And I see 700,000, but how much of that 1.4 is spoken for? I
Sherry,
know
the
we were gonna have a
1.4 is a 1.2.
1.424, right?
1.4, okay.
Okay.
And in this 2023 recommended budget, we have 700,000,
Right.
which is 50%. We've committed, I want to say 200,000-ish for the Broomfield Road east of the current project.
Right.
We did that earlier.
Right, last month we did that.
And then
We
it
talked
was
about it.
close to 200,000 for the fitness
Park.
program over at the park.
So we're at 1.1.
And I believe those are the only two
Some
ARPA,
on River Road too. River Road, the River Road PRV.
the River
Those where
Road
we're putting in the high service pumps.
PRV that was agreed to earlier. How much was that?
Oh, yeah.
Let me look here real quick. It was,
But if you add it all up, it exhausts about all the ARPA monies
And so
between
I
what
had-
we've
We
already
use a lot of it
committed
in sewer.
and
Well-
these two recommendations. And then I'll also add that as it pertains to the Broomfield road work and the park road work, we have also applied for 2% funds. And our hope is that we receive those, and then that will reduce the amounts of the ARPA monies that were committed for those two projects.
My question
Go ahead.
is that we just received a presentation on our capital improvements and that loan that's available at 1% or whatever it was. And I'm just struggling to find out why we are spending $700,000 on that if we aren't gonna borrow the money. I thought we were gonna borrow $9 million or whatever, and take care of all this stuff over time and have a loan at 1%. Instead of spending all of our ARPA money, then not having any projects left to borrow that money, and which could, 9% is eligible to be granted. It doesn't make any fiscal sense to me. I don't understand.
We're still planning on, I think it's in 2024 or 5, needing to borrow about $6 million to effectuate the capital plan. And to the extent that we don't use the ARPA funds now, we'll just increase that borrowing.
Yeah.
And that's your point. Cheap money, relatively cheap money. The ratepayers will pay for that interest. And so our recommendation is to use cash when we have it and using it, as I said last time, it's just,
I just
and I don't
think,
need to repeat myself, but
yeah,
our recommendation is try to use these funds for the capital improvements for projects that don't also come with it ongoing new operating expenses.
I heard that the first time you said it, thank you.
Yeah, I know.
But I still think that these capital projects should be, in my opinion, and the way I understood it is, that the ratepayers are supposed to fund that. Even if it's a capital improvement to the system, I thought it was to be reflected in the rates.
Well, I agree,
Doug.
Ken. Well, no, was you-
That's all I've got. I mean, I just,
Trustee
I'm
Howe?
not,
Well, a couple things that I'm wondering about this too, is we're gonna use $500,000 of ARPA funds for Pump Station 1. Our projected year-end fund balance for sewer for the fiscal year 2022, our ending fund balance is projected to be $11,815,000. For the fiscal year projected year-end fund balance for 2023, $12,300,000. Well, there's $500,000 right there that pays for your pump.
mhm.
And we're gonna take $500,000 that that in my opinion, we're putting it in a pump that should be paying for itself with what we charge for the system. And we're gonna take $500,000 of those funds and, I don't know, I just think we should use it for improvements to something.
Yeah, I do too.
And just
I
point
mean,
of
we're always looking
clarification,
for money for Pump Station 1 from every source. It seems to me like our system should be maintaining itself. I just don't understand why we're always robbing from Peter to pay for this. I mean, maybe I don't make sense here, but I just don't understand it.
Mr. Stuhldreher, you had something?
just point of clarification, the fund balance in the utility funds, whether it's water, sewer, think that's not the same as the fund balance in the general fund. It's
No.
actually net
No, I know, yeah,
assets,
I know. It's
and
separate.
it's net of capital and
Right,
all
right.
that. It's not what we really want to look at. We don't have a chart in here. I thought I tried to think about putting one in, but it's it's our level of working capital that we pay attention to in these funds. There's several things going on with the utility fund that we try to balance. Cash on hand, operating income, debt service ratios, and I might be missing one. It's a balancing act. Rates and other monies that we get that are allowed to be spent in the utility area are what fund the operation. And if you don't have the cash on hand, you're going to have to borrow. That's just simple. And the more you're going to cash finance, or the more you're going to borrow, you're going to have to raise rates to replenish the cash, pay the interest. From just a pure financial perspective, if you get $700,000 of cash from the federal government, one thing that's an allowed expense is utility infrastructure. To the extent we can use that, it provides, we're already recommending 5.9% rate increases for the sewer fund, 4.9 maybe for the water,
4.9
close.
for water, 5.1 for sewer.
And and as we look out into our capital plan, to maintain those ratios and to do the work that's needed in the capital plan, we're going to have to borrow money. And whether the rate is 1% or 19% on your credit card, it's still extra money. I mean, if you don't have the cash, you're gonna have to borrow. Then you look for the cheapest rate, but it's still additional expense.
We're making that
So-
application this month, right? If that's what the presenter said.
No, what we
No.
did, it had to be done November 1st was the intent to apply.
Right, oh, the letter of
Yeah, the
intent.
application will actually go in next year, but these projects will not actually start construction until the third quarter of 2024.
Right.
Because you have a long process you have to go through with the state if you get funded.
Right, which we should know by the end of next year.
We will know by October of next year if we are going to get, there's no guarantee we're gonna get any funding.
Exactly.
Even a loan.
So why couldn't we do these items next year? If we
These two
can't-
projects have already been bid and awarded. These were two projects that we designed, permitted, bid. They came in higher than what we anticipated because of the cost of goods and services, labor that went up. So the amounts you're seeing in here are the additional costs that we had over what we thought we were going to have in these projects.
I think it's reasonable to say that if, this is a question, reasonable to say that if we didn't approve ARPA funds for that particular, for pump station one, let's say, I mean, that ends up coming out of the enterprise fund at the current time then. And I don't disagree with, I just want to voice support for both Trustee Houck and Trustee Bill's comments. I mean, I've gone through these same feelings myself. The enterprise funds, by and large, should be self-sustainable. I think it's what you were driving at.
Trying to say.
And I don't disagree with that a bit, but I also hear the manager when he talks about borrowing power. When I look at ARPA funds, you know, the ideal situation is that we use it to provide some service or asset to the community as a whole. Well, most of the things we're going to spend it on doesn't serve every constituent or every business. And I'm on water and, or I'm not on water and sewer in my home. I have a well and I have a septic drain field. And so from a selfish perspective, I look at it and go, oh, well, I don't want to give it to the enterprise funds. I really like it in the general fund because that gives us more latitude. This is a special time offered with this cash from the federal government. And so, I mean, there are emotional ties is what I'm getting at that I have on where this money should go. We've all had these discussions. I'm not opposed to this directly, but I 100% agree with the comments that I heard from Trustee Bills and Trustee Houck as far as walking through the reasoning of this or not this. I guess I'll leave it at that. I don't know if I made sense to the other
Yeah,
trustees.
it made sense, but
Well, if we've got 12,300,000,
You don't
What
have
i-
12,300,000.
well, then what do we have in the ending fund balance
see, that's how I read it, like how she did.
for the sewer fund? If it's not that, then please could you put it in English for me, because it looks.
Jerry, do you know how much that 12 million is in infrastructure capital?
Do we lose her?
She's muted right now.
Sherry?
I'm here.
There we go. We hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah,
The question is that the net assets in one of the funds, water or sewer, 12 point something million.
well, that's projected for next year. This year, it's 11.8 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How
You
much of
really
that
can't look
is,
at that like it's cash, because that's not all cash, that includes assets. That can't really be readily turned into cash, so I don't have the financial statement right in front of me, but there is on the financial statement, we could look up to see, what portion of that fund balance is net assets.
do you have access to that on your computer, either the BSNA GL or the web copy of the financial report?
I can look it up.
Please. Thank you.
In the meantime, I do have a question. Are you set,
Oh,
Mr.
yeah,
Trustee?
yes.
Okay, I just had a question, just in the summary section on the page 1. It says a cost allocation study is budgeted at 10,000 to ensure that the general fund is receiving proper support from the other funds. I don't get that. Isn't that like built in procedurally to projects?
The the enterprise operations, in our case, water and sewer, are supported by this board, for instance, me, the manager, and we've gone through an internal back of the envelope exercise that, for instance, allocates a third of my salary to the general fund, water, sewer. That's cost allocation.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm suggesting here is that we go through a more rigorous analysis of, to answer two questions. Are we charging, is the general fund charging all that it's allowed to charge, is appropriate, to the water and sewer funds? Because if we're not, we should, because we can, and that's revenue back to them. It's an expense on those, but it's a legitimate expense.
Right.
And that also, to the extent we are currently allocating expenses from the general fund to the water, are they, if they're too much, we shouldn't be doing it, because it's verboten. And so that's the cost allocation study, is basically making sure all the expenses that the general fund's incurring, the general taxpayers incurring, that support the utility, that we're being compensated for that appropriately. That's what that study is about.
Who's doing the study? Who's getting the 10,000? I'm just asking.
Well, that's 10,000 to do the study. I don't know who's doing it yet. We would generate a scope of service, send out an RFP, that kind of thing.
I will add, just from an EDA perspective, I've seen the change over the last few years where there's been the responsibility of the EDA to make sure that they're paying into the general fund for support they get from the administration in various ways. Also they're kicking back the fire fund money now too, which is something that we didn't do in the past. I don't believe, did we?
Been doing it for quite a while.
have-
I don't know how long, but
Yeah, I don't think it's been forever, but
yes.
there is this change of making sure that the different funds, I think this is what you're getting at with what you're doing, that these different funds are properly allocating the cost to the general fund, that the general fund uses to support those other funds, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's the study that's referred to there.
Okay. Sherry, I don't know if you got that yet, or should I continue on with my other questions?
No, I do have it right
Okay,
now.
thank you.
As of the end of 2021, the unrestricted net position in those sewer and water funds was about 3.8 million each. So you're looking at, and you're saying 12 million or 10 million, I've heard those numbers. But, but the unrestricted portion is really only 3.8 million.
Was all that in the form of cash?
Sure. Oh, you heard the question.
It's the unrestricted net position, the part that's not investment in capital assets or restricted for bond reserves.
Right, but it might also include accounts receivable or something. I'm just curious how much, for instance, the EDA fund, that almost 100% of that fund balance is in the form of cash. I understand the net assets are 3 million, but that's probably allocated between a couple types of assets. I'm just wondering how much of that was cash.
Okay, let me look up to cash. So.
Because you gotta have cash to pay the bills.
So cash and, cash was 3.4 million in the sewer fund and 3.8 million in the water fund. So it's really close
Yeah,
to the,
most of that's cash.
yeah.
And these kind of things, these are interesting. It's a pure policy. It's to what extent, whether it's cost allocation or paying for infrastructure. The community may, for whatever reason, want to keep utility rates very low, relatively low. And so they will not want to have Board of Trustees, city councils, managers, expenses charged to that fund, because anything you charge to that fund just increases
Right.
expenses. But it's not, I would argue that it's not good public financial management. When it comes to the ARPA funds, it's just simply to use those in the utility is really nothing more than providing some, all things else being equal, relief to the
Right.
taxpayers. That's all it is. If the
Speaking,
board would like to so right now there's, and I'll get them mixed up again, but we have rate recommendations of 4.9% and 5.1 or something
Yeah.
like that. If we remove the $500,000 and the 200,000, that rate recommendation is going to change. It's going to go up.
Right.
I just clarification too. You said a relief to taxpayers, but it's really relief to users, right?
yeah. And I was about to ask, what percentage
Yeah, I
of our
meant to
tax,
say rate payer. if I-
what
Okay, 'cause
percentage of our taxpayers are actually using both systems? Or either system, or, you know, each of those two systems?
Yeah. So I think this, what I'm hearing, I mean, this comes down to
About
our enterprise funds are,
75?
75%.
from my perspective in this township, our enterprise funds, our water and sewer, Mark's used the term crown jewel. We've talked about what amazing facilities they are. I think we're all proud of that.
Right.
What this is, I think to try to boil this down a little bit is, we have a gift with these ARPA funds. We've chosen a few places to use those already. Is enterprise funds something that we're willing to put that into, realizing that the benefits of those are going to be the users, right? Just like with the workout circuit, that's only going to benefit a certain number of users. The roads, not everybody in the township drives every one of those roads. You know, everything you spend money on doesn't affect usually everybody within the township, right? And so it comes down to where are the priorities of this board. And I'm not trying to answer that.
Well, I
I'm
think
trying to see if we
the
can get
last
us.
two things you mentioned actually benefit more than just our township. They benefit anybody that wants to use them. So I think that's much nicer.
I get the argument, like
It
the
gives
dog.
us a lot of street cred to have these things.
Right. The dog park is a good example that I was very supportive of because I think it's an asset to our community.
Yeah.
It can attract people. But I also recognize that when we put some of those funds into the dog park, that we're serving a particular segment, And even though everybody has the opportunity to use it, not everybody's going to.
You're making it a more attractive township to live in. That's what you're doing.
Yes,
And that's what that facility is, the exercise facility as well.
Okay, so playing devil's advocate now, I don't know where I sit in all this fully either, but playing devil's advocate, more attractive community is having good water and sewer. And if we're able to help defray some costs and keep those down, we always talk about the cost to our connections, et cetera, et cetera. Our job, I guess, is, are we good with this recommendation or not? I haven't heard from Clerk Cody or Trustee Brown if you have thoughts on this.
I do, I've been listening, and the meeting that you weren't at, that Mark answered a lot of questions for us. James is here, and we talked about several things, and I was really on board with the parks and, you know, doing something like that for the community, something that was touchable. I think I mentioned in meetings in the past. And there was things that I didn't look at that Mark had brought to our attention. One, maintenance. Big one. Very big. Thought a lot about that since. And to make it very simple on my end, I'm very supportive of infrastructure in this township. No matter who it benefits, whether it's a semi-truck driver coming off 127 or one of our constituents. I think infrastructure makes the township what it is. We are very proud of it. They are our crown jewels. So my mind has changed because of conversations throughout the community and with management here. I believe that this money should be spent in the infrastructure side of the community. And that's just my opinion in whole. I mean, I'm still working through that, as everybody else, as I work through this. There's a lot of information. But my mind is, I seem to have opened my eyes a bit more, not looking at the tree, more looking at the forest. So I'm a lot more supportive of the budget and the infrastructure, the use of the ARPA funds in that sense.
I've made much that same journey, and I have voiced some maybe grayness here, semi on purpose. I mean, I've gone through that same journey of this. I'm going to call it selfishness of where our ARPA money should go, right, for the township,
Very much so.
and come to a certain realization of, but what makes this township? And you know, I'm not really opposed to this, but I've had to go through this same journey and decide, is this the right approach? My biggest concern with the ARPA funds, and it's been expressed by the administration, is putting it in something that has ongoing costs that we're not necessarily prepared
To spend more
to
money.
forecast on or spend more money on, even though it'd be really nice to have in the township. And, you know, those ideas that don't have that additional cost recurring, that liability long-term, are obviously more attractive to me in general.
Well,
Clerk Cody, did you have any thoughts that you want to share?
No.
So, let me ask this board now. I mean, I appreciate the discussion we're having. We have 2 more meetings. We do have to approve a budget before the end of the year. I believe it's required by state law, correct? So, I mean, we would be negligent if we don't go do that, and I'm not expecting that.
we
Well, let
literally
me-
just got the budget too. I mean,
Understood.
I'm sure we'll get there.
yeah.
So I guess what I'm asking this board is it still productive to continue this particular discussion on this particular
No.
item? And if we need to, we can come back to it because we'll have more opportunity to talk about this at our next meeting.
I would
Yeah.
like to come back because, like I say, yeah, it's
It's fresh.
still new and fresh.
I haven't had time to dive into anything really. I did a brief look through, and I just had a couple more quick questions.
Yeah, and I was only suggesting regarding these 2 particular ARPA
I
things. So
follow
if you
you,
have other
sir.
questions, have at it.
still on the first page of that summary. Just before fire, it says fiscal year 2023 year-end fund balance, and I'm assuming that's general fund, is 148% of the expenses for fiscal year 2023. Is there a recommended fund balance percentage that we're supposed to keep? I'm just curious because I think there is. I think I've heard that,
Well, it's
and I
certainly
don't
there.
remember.
The only recommendation that from entities like Government Finance Officers Association, what they would say is you should never have a fund balance below 15%.
Do a what?
15?
15.
Jesus.
This community, this board, is not prepared to operate
Oh, no.
with that kind of fund balance. I mean, I just know.
Our
Enough.
cash flow doesn't even allow that, does it?
No, that's crazy.
I would.
That's
It
paycheck
would?
to
Okay.
paycheck.
That's a scary proposition to me.
If you're a library, if you're a school, your fund balances are closer to what these are. City of Mount Pleasant, their fund balance is somewhere, I think, between 13 and 20%.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. There's a lot that goes into that at a unique community level. This community does not, I don't think, my sense is, they prefer not to borrow money.
Right.
That requires a higher fund balance. If we were operating at 15%, you'd have, I don't know what the math is, but probably, $3 million that you could spend one time and drive that thing down to 15% or something. And so you'd spend your money, and then each year these budget discussions would become a lot different. Because in order to maintain that kind of level year in, year out, you enter into a dynamic where you're mostly talking about cutting costs every year. And so, you spend your money one time, and then, then we start debating which positions are going to be eliminated to meet that kind of thing. You have a lot of flexibility because you have a large fund balance, and
Right.
that's my sense of what the community has decided over decades that it would rather be in. There is a balance. The counter argument is, well, this money in the general fund was generated from property taxes,
Right.
state shared revenue, user fees, that kind of thing. And why do you have so much money? Shouldn't you return it to the taxpayer, or lower your taxes, or do those kinds of things? Those are policy questions. And my sense is, I may be wrong, but my sense is that policy that policy question has generally been asked and answered. If you look back in one of these charts that I showed you the other night, back in the other information section,
I'm familiar with that.
Yeah,
the blue line is going down,
Yeah.
which is, to your point, 2019, 300%, 3 years of paying operations in the general fund without raising a dollar of revenue, is what that says in concept theory.
Yeah.
Now it's a year and a half, so we are drawing down fund balance as a percent of operating expenses. And if you look at the long-term projections for the general fund, which is the first page behind the personnel report, twenty, 2032, we're looking at 180%. So that's just a lot of education on fund balance.
Okay. Yep.
Can I comment on
Yes,
this too?
sir.
Back, I was a trustee from 12 to 16, and back then I was kind of asking these same questions you are, and kind of struggled with these fund balances. Back then it was closer to 150%, 200%, from memory at least. This shows a little less. And there was a concerted effort at that time that, are we underserving or overtaxing? Oh, we're 1 mil. It's not like we're overtaxing. Are we underserving then? And there was concerted effort to begin to draw this down, these cash reserves, right? And what would happen over time is we'd slate for big projects. They would get delayed. For example, the Lincoln project that we just finally got done, right? Got delayed for a long time.
Isabel Road.
Right, or sidewalk projects that, like on Bluegrass, that began way back when, that couldn't get spent because we didn't have easements, or whatever the reasons were. We continued to try to bring it down, and we couldn't, and it continued to climb. And so I've always asked the question too, are we underserving? And I think I've come to the realization the manager talked about is the flexibility that we're afforded by having a healthy fund balance is another asset to our community. Now, because I did consider even back then, I'm like, well, do we return the money to the taxpayers? Wouldn't that be a huge gift to them? And the reality is, when I looked at the numbers, I'm like, they're not going to notice much, really, because we only captured 1 mil. But it is interesting. I think we are blessed to be where we are, and if the residents of this township knew this, who does? I mean, what percentage knows?
Right.
I think they'd be pretty proud of how this fund has been managed over time, these funds.
I am proud of it. I think it's great. I think we're
Yeah, I wasn't thinking you were, I'm sorry.
very healthy township with our accounting and spending.
Thanks for letting me speak.
Thank you, sir. I just had one more comment on 2 of the fees that are planned to be, in my opinion, it seems to be egregiously upcoded here. The turn on, turn off fee for, I'm guessing water or electric or whatever it is. I don't know, but that's a huge increase. It's like 50% increase, and sometimes people are getting a turn off because they don't have a paycheck.
I agree with you 100% on that one. That's one that really stood out when I was,
Yeah.
looking through everything.
And I just think it's a kick in the pants. Same with this final recharge, going from $57 to $78. I get it, but what if they're moving from one place in our township to another place? I still think that's also kind of really ridiculous. I don't understand how can that cost us $78 to have somebody go do a final reading? So that's the only things I had to say about that. I'm gonna shut up.
Did you want a response to that?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Joel,
Well,
can you answer those? Or
The
respond?
fees, in particularly the 2 cases, in all these cases, these were the result of a cost of service study that was done several years ago. I believe this board was seated when that was done. Maybe it was done before this board. And These are this is what it costs to do this work. When you take into account the equipment usage, charge, it costs you money to use your equipment, either because you're wearing it out or it's the cost of the people to do it, salaries, benefits. This is what it costs, and again, from a policy perspective, what we're simply saying is that if we have to go out to John Doe's property to do a final read, that individual should pay for that service, not the rest of the ratepayers. That's basically what the policy that we're trying to achieve is. Yes, it costs a lot of money.
I know where you're coming from, Connie. I mean, I hear it from the plumbers. In my industry, I hear it from the plumbers. And they're going to see this rate increase of turning on and turning off, raising another $23 each time. I know I'm going to hear it from 3 or 4 of them.
Well, it goes to the person, and that's, in a lot of cases, look, we have a recession coming up, literally, we know we are, and there's gonna be a lot of people with a short sale, they're getting kicked out of their house, and then this is another $100 they gotta pay for a shut-off. Yeah,
For the average American, they can weather this increase, but I think one of the things I heard is when you're poor, it costs you more to survive, and it's these kinds of things when you're in poverty and you get hit with these additional fees like late overdrafts and banks, all those kinds of things really hit the poor a lot harder than they hit us, because we're not typically having our water cut off. We didn't pay our bill because we can afford to pay our water bill.
I don't think we're overall, maybe we have some millionaires in this district. We don't, most of our people are normal people, I think. And a normal person is pretty much underwater with the inflation right now. They're underwater, so that's all I got to say about that.
Did you get your question answered about it? This?
Yeah.
Yes, trustee.
I feel where you're coming from, Connie. I do. I feel that pain, see that pain. But the township, I mean, our other town, we just can't give that away. I mean, we do. If you look at page 4 of 4 and go to other information, Charter Township of Union, 2023 personnel cost summary. Let's go to a skilled labor that's going to go out and do that. Total compensation, $76,420 that we pay. We send a public works foreman out to an issue that the foreman needs to go out to. $116,858 compensation for that gentleman or lady. And if we need the superintendent out there, that's $132,838 we pay them. We have to recoup some of that. We
Who's
just
doing
do.
the shut-off?
Well, but let's just talk about this for a minute. No matter who this is, and let's say there's a problem with the shut-off, and the foreman does have to go to superintendent. Let's just say it's a skilled labor at $76,420 with a truck, with the tools. I work in the skilled trades. You have to be able to cover yourself. The township would have to cover those charges somehow. Do you understand? Don't
dollars already. That's what I'm saying. Well, these are already funded through the general fund, and I know what you guys are saying. You don't know what I'm saying?
No, not funded through the general fund.
What are they funded? How do we fund
Enterprise
the
funds.
personnel?
Enterprise funds.
Enterprise funds.
We have to cover for these. And I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. People are down. People are getting hurt. People are getting kicked. We're there. I understand that. But we can't just give the township away either.
So
And we have to
that's-
cover ourselves.
Jeff,
Those
you
That's
two-
don't,
with fees.
Those 2 fees, I'm against it. That's all I'm saying right now. I don't
Okay,
care.
that's cool.
Trustee Hout?
Jeff, you don't ever have a plumber look at you and say, they did some work, they're doing some work on a house, say for instance your house.
Mm-hmm.
They want to go work, they have to call the township to turn the water off.
Yeah.
Takes, most of the time it's just go turn the valve off. Outside, you know as well as I do,
Yeah.
$45. They do an hour's worth of work, the guy comes back, it's another $45. It costs more to have that guy come back and forth turning the water on and off than it did the person to get the hour's worth of plumbing done. And that's where the plumbers come at. We're gonna, I'm telling you what, you're gonna have some plumbers coming to the meetings. I mean, it's
exorbitant.
reality. I hear it. I mean, I heard it last night from one of the plumbers. And you
Wow.
know him.
Yeah,
So-
I work with several of these plumbers, and I'm not hearing that, Bill. I'm
Well,
not hearing
Jeff,
that.
you
They're
don't
more than
work in
welcome
this
to come.
area.
We would love to have them in the meeting. I'll explain the same thing to the plumbers.
I do too, but,
I would love to have them come in. Please, come in.
well, I tell
Because I'm not hearing it. I work with every one of these plumbers every day. Every day. And they're not talking to me about it.
Jeff,
So I
you are not
welcome that.
working in the Union Township community, though. You're working in a different area where,
I work with these
It's-
plumbers every day. They know my position. They're more than welcome to talk to me about it. I would love to hear it. I would love to hear it. I welcome it, Bill. And I ask for it.
them.
I ask
Okay,
for it.
ask them.
You know, they can come to me anytime. But I've been hearing this and hearing this and hearing this, and people are gonna come in here and we're gonna hear it, and we're gonna hear it. I welcome that. I welcome that because I will go over the same thing that it cost us to go over
I
and turn it
realize
on and
what
off.
we pay employees. I realize, I run a business too, Jeff, and I know that what I have
So
to
are you gonna
charge-
give away, you're gonna give away your services? You're a skilled trade. These are skilled tradesmen going out there. These are our township employees going out there.
I know, Jeff.
Where the money's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
You're saying it comes straight from the taxpayer, and I understand that, but I don't agree with it. That's
I'm
all.
not saying that.
No, this doesn't
Doesn't.
come,
I'm
this
not
comes
saying that
from
at all.
the
Well, they have to pay the fees, don't they?
No,
the
that's,
plumber would charge the plumber would get charged these fees. And the
Right.
plumber,
Actually,
Charge
that's
them.
not true. These go on water bills,
oh, okay, well,
but the
okay. I can-
actual individual homeowner pays these.
But still,
A
they're,
plumber does not come in to the front desk and pay for these.
no, they call in and
They
the home-
fill out a form that
Right.
is then, and then those go on the quarterly water.
I'm not
bill,
getting anywhere
and
with this.
the-
Okay, I'm gonna
the
end
homeowner
this.
pays it.
Let's just end this because it's
Yeah,
not gonna be
if-
worth getting in the weeds over this. Plumbers, please come in and state your opinions. Thank you.
so I think, I have to make an assumption here that the administration didn't price these
No.
to try to make money. The enterprise funds aren't money-making per se, and that's not the objective here. I think our manager said it well, and that this is a policy issue, and the policy here is saying if we have to incur the cost of, in this case, $70 for final recharge, who's paying for that? Is all of the users in the enterprise, all of the water, all the sewer people having to pay for that? Or is the person that requested the final recharge paying for it? And that's ultimately what this is coming down to, right?
I mean,
Is
I've
what is the
heard-
if you have a different policy, we can articulate that.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard people say the hookup fees are really high. They've said that to me in my other job. They don't even know I do this, and then they found out what I do, and they're like, well, why is it like this? Blah, 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 and then you hear more about it. But, I mean, I just don't like this one, like the shut-off in the hookup fees, because if I can't afford to pay my water bill, I surely can't afford to get it turned back on. There's no way. And then I'm just behind and behind and behind. I mean, so if you can, like, drop that down and put it somewhere else, I would be really,
Me too.
really happy, because I think people are going to be without water, and you really,
Yeah.
I mean, some of the people I know and that I work with, they are literally living paycheck to paycheck and can't afford to. They're eating ramen noodles and like, I mean, like, that one bothers me.
And just so I'm making sure I understand, I try to speak to the poverty perspective, that I can't afford to have my water turned back on. I maybe pay my next bill,
Yeah.
but I can't afford to turn it on, right? And because I live in poverty,
You're stuck without water.
you're kind of stuck. So I empathize with that perspective. So your perspective, I'm just
I
making
mean,
sure I
like,
understand,
can you, like, put it,
is just these two kind of
them two
things.
really, yeah, get me.
Those two are exorbitant.
I mean, that is my opinion.
Mr.
You don't
Stuhldrager,
argue about sewer.
you've
That-
worked
that
in
was
other
a big one.
communities.
Sewer and water, argue about
Is there any kind of, have you heard this kind of concern from board members in the past in other communities? And I have a reason to ask that.
It occurs in every single community.
So
Yeah.
with that,
And-
sorry, go ahead.
And it's exactly what you all are talking about. It's to what degree should the receiver of a service, whether it's getting your water turned off or on because you went down to Florida, or you had your water turned off because you couldn't pay your bill, or you're a developer and we're charging the developer the fee to review the site plan, you know, to what extent should that receiver of these kind of specific services have to pay versus I use the term general taxpayer, because somebody's got to pay for this stuff. It is not free. You know, water is not free. Treating sewage is not free. Having a police force is not free. We all know that. We all know it conceptually. But when it gets translated into a particular individual, it's very painful. You know, you guys are expressing that pain right here. But at the end of the day, somebody's going to pay for it.
Fine, let the general, the water and sewer fund pay for it, out of their fees, everybody's fees. I'm saying I don't want those two fees increased, that's what I'm saying.
I don't
I
either.
think that Clerk Cody's saying that, I think Bill Hobbs saying that, that's three of us saying that, on those two fees, that's what I'm saying, and that's all I've got to say about it.
So, for sake of moving on then, since we're gonna have more discussion, and we'll have our other board members with us too.
Yeah,
Let's bring this back when we come back.
yeah.
That gives us all a chance to kind of gel and hear what our other trustees have said, because I always learn from you guys too. So, you have other stuff?
No, I'm all done, sir.
Anybody else have issues or questions they want?
I have one more. I
Yes.
just want to be educated on one thing. If Kim could educate me on the water fund, first page, leases on the tower rental. Can you?
Sure, we have, cell tower antennas
Oh,
on the Broadway water tower,
Oh, antennas. Okay.
and we receive, money for leases on those.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's what-
Okay.
That's what that revenue is.
So we receive that. Okay.
Yeah, and we only have them on the Broadway tower.
Yeah. Okay. I just didn't understand what that. What are we doing there? Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's all for me.
Trustee Hauk, do you have any more?
No, the only thing I
Today?
was gonna ask is, I don't know, I know I've asked this before. I know we're looking at buying 2 new vehicles. Is there any way we can team up with anybody else buying them, like the county, are they buying any? You know, could we buy 4 together if they need to, we need to, you get a better price? I know we've talked about that before. Or we've talked about the deal where the city has the deal with Ford where they get new vehicles every year. I mean, I don't know how many pickups they have. But Bill Abbott told me all about this. He's the supervisor for the city public works. I just know that they just traded their vehicles in, and I know Konwinski Construction bought 2 of them, and they're nice vehicles. But I mean, I didn't know if we ever looked into that program. I know I talked to you about it before, Mark, and I can't remember what Smith used to be at Crapel Ford. It wasn't Mark. I thought there was another one.
Brian, his dad, used to, but then
Okay,
Mark,
I'm not sure
Mark.
which one it was. But
We
anyways,
can continue to explore
I like that idea.
the
I didn't
best,
know, like
most
buying
effective,
power, if we
efficient
could-
way to purchase these things.
yeah.
May shave, a few $1,000 off. But we will do that. I mean, we do that.
But I didn't know. Like,
But I don't know
I
that.
didn't know if the county was buying any. Or,
I don't recommend that we be like, I wouldn't recommend we not buy the trucks while we've tried to figure this out.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
No, we don't
No,
want to
he
do
was
that.
just saying
You
to
might
put
be
it out
another
there for
year
future.
and-
Well, and then next thing you know,
we
instead
buy
of
local?
96,000, it'll be 102,000.
We buy local?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you wait, it'll be more.
Thanks, Bill.
It's a good idea, Bill. I like that idea.
No, they're just budgeted, I'm assuming, right?
I thought they bidded them a couple times. I remember
Cody,
seeing it.
do you have anything on the budget that you want to bring up today?
No, not today. I can't.
Okay.
That's why I can't.
I just want to make sure everybody had the opportunity to get their questions
great
in.
conversation.
Yes, trustee.
Well, I know the road commission's buying some pickups. They said that before, so they maybe already bought them. I'm not sure.
All right, so was this good?
This was good. This is excellent conversation.
Looking forward to both trustee Thering and trustee, or clerk treasurer Rice, excuse me, being able to join us on this next time. I do appreciate and just want to give a shout out to all those that are involved in putting the budget together. I know it's a lot of work getting to here, and it can't always be easy for the staff to hear us pick it apart and give our opinions. But that's kind of our job, is to fiduciary, right?
Right.
And to make sure that our taxpayers are getting bang for their buck and we're spending well. And but I don't want to miss the opportunity. I'm going to say it again, to thank the staff for all that was put into this.
I second that.
It was a lot of
I forgot
work,
to
yeah,
do that.
they
I'm
did.
sure all of us agree. We
Yes.
really
Oh,
appreciate
absolutely.
all the effort going into that.
And believe me, the staff is, we're indifferent. The policy is for you guys to make. And, whether it's a turn-on fee or what, we're just effectuating a policy. I'd like to, it's easy, and I know you want to get out of here, but it's easy. These two fees you're talking about, they raise $8,000 in this budget. You can eliminate them. It's $8,000, okay? Your total revenue is $1.9 million. But what you're doing is you're beginning to, and you don't even realize it when you're doing it, but you're beginning to go down a road where in 10 years, you will be like these communities that
Don't have fun.
don't have water and sewer. You're passing out bottled water. And I know that, you'll think of that doomsday and exaggeration and all that. But I've sat across the table and I've talked to hundreds of water and sewer customers in cities where they were a lot more poor than this, and the systems were in much more worse shape, and they're crying. And while I'm talking to them, they're on their cell phone. And I've asked them, we just want our money. We don't do this for free. I might suggest that you prioritize your water and sewer bill over your phone bill. I've had those discussions with ratepayers, and or the cable bill. It's tough. You got to make these choices, but somewhere along the line, the society decided that we didn't want to just go down to the river with the pail and get water. We got rid of the outhouses. The stuff in, So anyways.
Yeah.
Two questions I have, or two comments, and then I'll turn it back to you, and I'm sure you're gonna get to one. Let me know if you wanna have a special meeting before your next board meeting. We can, it just takes two board members, I think, to call a meeting, so.
Before you move on from that, do you have anticipation of what's on the last November agenda at this point? I know we'll have policy governance, obviously, but, I mean, part of it, I'm guessing this board, it would depend on what else is on the agenda. If we have a busy night already, we'll make sure we
So
have
we just
opportunity to.
Throw
Sorry.
another one out there, like have an extra work session. I gotta have time to go through more of this. I'm just, you know what I mean? But I'd
Yeah.
like a couple hours set time where we can
There's
go.
not that much difference.
That's my opinion.
This budget is really an
Yeah.
extension of the prior years.
Right.
There's nothing new here. You guys know these finances better than anybody that I've ever worked for. There's no surprises in here. There's some general cost increases because it costs more to do stuff. But by and large, and almost 100%, what we're spending money on here is things that you've wanted us to spend money on. And you don't, what I'm suggesting is, you don't, in my humble opinion, this board does not need to spend an exorbitant amount of time approving budgets unless you're gonna get down into the weeds, and then it's like, what are we doing here?
Well, to me, it's became a lot easier in the last 3 years anyway.
Well, it's 'cause
I
they
mean, the
put all
first
that
couple
extra
years you
stuff.
were here, we really dug into it. We spent a lot of time. But now it's just,
You look at your AP every every
right.
twice a month. You get policy governance reports. So I'm just letting you know that I don't think I'll spend 100 hours looking at this budget with y'all. But I think I'd be wasting your time.
Right.
I just want to look through it more because it's been not a
Well,
good time for me.
And to your question, Sherry, do you have access to, well, at the staff meetings, we talk about the upcoming agendas. Do you know, do you have anything, any notes from you, on your end that you can say what's on our agenda in 2 weeks?
No, I missed the last staff meeting because
Because you're out
Zoom
medically.
wasn't
Yeah,
working.
right, okay.
my Zoom wasn't working. So I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So,
That's okay.
real quick question to the board then. Would you prefer to have a separate work session, or, I think we
I
my
gotta
personal
read
opinion
it
is we
first.
can
I
do
don't
it.
know. I'm not done.
I don't wanna do that.
I mean, I,
I don't
think we'll
think
be
so.
fine.
I don't think
Okay.
it's necessary.
I don't
So
either.
at this point, we're fine just putting
Yeah.
this on the
fine.
agenda again in our next meeting.
Yeah.
And then
Mhm.
we'll have an opportunity. Ideally, we don't want to get to the December meeting and make a bunch of change. We can make changes on the what is December meeting,
14th.
whatever it is.
You can make changes, you can approve. I've been with governing bodies on the 31st of the
Right.
day of December, getting the budget approved. So you can do that.
Right.
You can do,
We'd rather not.
No.
We'd rather not,
We'd
right?
rather
That's, I
be
guess that
home
was
for
my
the
point.
holidays.
So, well, I mean, even in the December meeting, I think
Yeah.
once, in my experience, we made one line item change at the very last meeting. So hopefully everybody does their homework again, and we're prepared to talk about this next time. Your second
Yeah.
question that you had?
just going back to, and I know it was just used as an example, but the BSNA software, that's our what I call our main back office software. We have budgeted in 2023 $18,000 for the software and maintenance support fee. And the vast majority of that is budgeted in the IT department. There are a couple, and we have I think about 12 modules that we pay for: cash receipting, general ledger, payroll, accounts payable, go down the list. The utility billing module is charged 100% to the water and sewer funds, 50/50 each. There is a maintenance fee that's, you'll see in the building budget, building department budget. And that is because we try to, where we can, cost center the building department is the fees that are paid from the builders and all. Those are supposed to be used for that department. And so, as appropriate, we need to put the expenses in that department. So the building module is budgeted, that service fee is budgeted in that department.
So
Probably
not
more
a
detail
question,
that you wanted, but
not as much a question as just explaining something.
explain it,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and my only point, just so I was clear, and I didn't mean to pick on BSNA, but if someone wants to look at the total cost of something when it's split across
Right.
multiple departments,
made
it's
notes
nice
of
to,
that,
yeah,
yeah.
reference that.
Right.
Incidentally, 18,000, it's not bad.
No.
My software maintenance support fees are actually a little higher than that, so. That's why I had interest in that line item. I was kind of curious. All right, we good, everyone?
Yep.
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 All right, moving on. Item 12 on our agenda. Sorry to keep our clerk here so late tonight. Extended public comment. Extended public comment is restricted to 5 minutes regarding any issue. If you choose to speak to the public, please state your name and address for the record. And with that, we'll open up extended public comment at, I have to look at my watch tonight, 9:12 p.m. And we have no one in person from the public. I have
No
been
one.
flagged that we have no one online. So with that, we'll close extended public comment at 9:13 p.m. That takes us to item 13 on our agenda, manager's comments. Mr. Stooldryer, you have the floor again.
Thank you, and just a few things I've already mentioned. I was going to mention during this period about the LED lights, brought that up earlier tonight. The Vector truck, we're anticipating delivery November 16th.
November 16th?
Yeah. 2 weeks ago it was the 24th, now it's the 16th. Continues to bounce around, but we're getting close.
Blew my thunder. I wanted to announce it.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
I did also want to let you know that we have begun the collective bargaining negotiations. Hope to have those wrapped up by the end of the year. There is a bill out in the legislature that it's intended to adjust the Open Meetings Act to make some of the remote, take more advantage of remote access, even to the point of allowing board members to not have to be physically present under some pretty limited conditions, but right now you can't. So,
Yes, sir. Follow that.
and then the last thing I want to do is thank the township clerk for the election. The election is, whether it's this election or last year or 5 years ago, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of pressure. People are voting. But I want to thank the poll workers, the clerk, Lynn, the deputy clerk, public services staff for helping get these precincts set up. I want to particularly call out Tara, Carrie, and Amy. We did have some new things yesterday, the biggest one being I've never seen it with this volume of same-day registration and voting. And there was, we're all in this together, you know. You're both an elected official and a department head, which means you're integral to the operations. So we just like to support each other, and but they really did a good job. And I came back, you know, it's gonna be a little tense. You know, you never know what's gonna happen these days. The little election in Union Township, but you know, I came back, and we ended up leaving at 8, and then let the clerk and the poll workers finish it up. I just want to thank everybody that was involved in pulling off that election. It went smooth. Thank you. That's all I have.
Awesome, thanks. That brings us to final board member comment. Trustee Hope?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody on this board, the staff here, and the general public for electing me to the Isabella County Road Commission yesterday. I have a question. I don't know what the process is going to be, but I think that better start looking at getting someone. I mean, what are we going to do there? I mean, you're going to wait till after the first of the year or start right away?
We certainly need to have those discussions. I didn't want to jump the gun and
No, I
be
know.
presumptuous until
Right.
yesterday had come and gone.
Right, I know.
Yep.
So, and I just think that, I mean, I've got a couple people, so if we want to talk, Brian, we can talk and go from there. One thing I think that really needs to happen, it's been brought up 3 or 4 times tonight, how much time our clerk is putting into these elections. Like I said, I've gone 7 days a week. I drive by this township hall, and usually 7 days a week she's here. Lately, you know, and I just think that there needs to be an increase in the clerk's salary. I don't think it's nothing against the treasurer's position, but I don't think it's fair that the clerk and treasurer make the same amount. That's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Clerk Cody?
Mark kind of ruined mine. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, me too.
I wrote everybody down. No. I just wanted to thank, I'm just going to name remember it. Lynn, Tara. Okay, so Lynn, my deputy, Tara, Carrie, Amy, even Mark was helping me with everything. We had 12, you know, so many people coming in at a time to register to vote. And all of them were helping me. I couldn't have done it without them. Like, I needed them. Okay, I got Amy, Mark, Peter. He stayed and helped me throughout the day after he got out. Bill, he went around getting pizza and everything, checking on everybody. Went and grabbed a couple things I needed at Jameson. Oh, I forgot to talk in the thing. Sheriff Maine, he stopped by, checked on us, made sure everything was okay. All the election inspectors, I'm sorry I'm not naming them all, but yeah. And they did a good job.
Would you do me a
Great job.
favor?
Yeah.
For those that may not be aware, how long does it take to process a same-day registration? One.
When they walk in the door, you got to get proof of residency, and then they look for that, and it takes a very long time. And then they have to send it to an email, and then we have to print it out. Then we have to look them up, and then, you know, processing, they fill out the application. I mean, it takes at least 10 minutes, you know. I mean, we can go do it real fast with 5 if there's just one person here, but when they're just coming in, it all depends on how fast everything goes.
Yeah, I guess what I was trying to lift up is that when those happen, like they did yesterday, it really throws a wrench into already hectic and crazy day.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, we were doing it nonstop for the later part of the day, like nonstop.
Yeah. When I came in and Trustee Hauk happened to be here at that time, this whole foyer was full. It was standing room only of people waiting to register to vote. It was
There were
crazy.
people that were standing here that were done voting. They had that kind of like, excuse me, I'm done voting. And they couldn't even get out because there were so many people in the lobby.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never seen that kind of volume for that
No.
that particular activity. So, Trustee Bills? I'm sorry, were you done?
Yeah.
Trustee Bills?
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to echo the praise for the election workers, all of them, including Clerk Cody and the staff. And it's been a lot harder over the last few years with the number of elections, and maybe we should look at, I again on this MTA thread that I always read, some of the townships have resorted to paying the clerk by the hour because it's so many hours, and they pay them $25 an hour.
Yeah.
And I just can imagine that if Clerk Cody divided her salary by the number of hours, it might not reach that quite amount, And so, anyway, we may want to look at that. I agree on that one. And I appreciate the budget. The budget looks really good. And I think it looks very professional, and I love the projections, and I'm very excited about the budget process. And I don't think we need a special meeting. That's all.
Thanks. Trustee Brown?
Yes, love the news about the vac truck, by the way. I have to say it. I went up to Kim and I said, Kim, can I share this in the meeting tonight? And then Mark shows up. Thanks, Mark. But anyways, I love that.
I know.
The more seriously though, how's the signs coming along for the Renaissance School? Are they the let stop signs, or the yield signs, I believe it was?
For the Renaissance School?
Yeah, is that something I remember some conversation that there was going to be some signage for the Renaissance School and in that speed zone out
Yes,
there.
and it's been a month or so since I followed up. At the time, the signs had not been delivered. I believe there's been an update since then. I think the signs are in. I've seen communication between the Road Commission and Renaissance School about what times of the day do you want these to be flashing
beautiful.
and not
Cool.
flashing, which makes me think that they're actually here and being programmed.
Awesome.
They're in and working.
And I was going to say,
I
for all I know,
drove
they
by
might be.
Oh, they've already put them
around.
in?
Oh,
When did they put them in, do you know?
I don't know.
Must've been-
I noticed them a couple days ago.
Okay.
They're the
I
little
noticed them
people
last week,
walking
too.
and they flash on the outside.
Oh,
yeah.
glad.
Yeah,
I
they
am
do.
super happy to hear that, because I think that'll relieve some of that pressure out there, some of that people looking at their phones, hoping they see that flashing light, because you come up on them so quick and through that light, you come up on them. So heading to the north, but both ways. Hey, glad to hear that. Thank you, Kim. I appreciate the report. I hadn't seen them, or just haven't drove by there in the last couple of days. Awesome. I'm glad to hear that they're up. That's all I have.
Vac truck.
Yay! Yeah, vac truck. Well, I would thank
thing.
thank Treasurer Cody. Also, I mean, everybody said it. We all feel the same. Absolutely. And I was down and I got to talk and spend some time with Norm and
yeah.
and everyone down there. And it was very clean. It was very good. They actually, when I was there, they had a ballot get stuck in the machine, and the guy walked off, and they couldn't find him. So they had to deal with that. It kind of shut everything down for a minute.
That
And-
happened here when I was over too.
Yeah, and it was very professional. I forget who the lady was. It took, I may have been your deputy.
I know
It
what-
took charge.
yeah.
And it kept everybody calm, and they did just an absolute wonderful job. And I got to see it in kind of an emergency situation, so it was excellent.
Clerk Cody, did you have
I
something
mean,
more?
I can comment, like, when we have the tabulators, there's an auxiliary bin, and the ballots go in those, like, if you write on them, a write-in, whether it's valid or not, all the write-ins go in that bin. And when there gets a stack of like this many, then it won't take any more, just because it doesn't,
Stack up
it's
higher,
like
yeah.
plastic, it won't hold anymore, so
Yeah.
it blocks it out. So, like, once they realize that, oh, we're getting write-ins, for Mickey Mouse or whatever,
Yeah.
then, you have to keep those separate. So it would fill up, and then they'd have to take it out, and then it'd be fine, and then it'd fill up. It happened, like, there was a lot of ballots going through those.
Yeah, it took him a minute just to take care of it. Mr. Artibus
Yeah.
was there, and everything was, it really worked. Very professional.
And there was 1,400 absentees turned in.
Okay, thank you.
Exactly on the button.
Really?
Yes,
Wow.
I forgot until
What are the
just
odds of that?
thinking about it. Yeah.
Are you all set?
I'm all set, thank you.
So I already given kudos to all that were involved in the elections. I just wanted to share, I think most of us for various reasons. I was pretty anxious leading up to the election for various reasons. That's my nature. I always am. But this happens every time. But yesterday was particularly special, and I tend to want to visit those polling locations. I always go and thank the workers because I'm so grateful for the time that they spend. But every time I do that, and you walk into those rooms and you watch everybody working together, and they all know that they're from different parties, but it is amazing to watch, and I feel so blessed to be born in a country where we get to have a say. And it just, the emotions overtake me every time, how special that is. And I don't take it for granted. So it's amazing. If you haven't seen how, if you haven't been close to an election as a citizen to see how this works and how our own people run them and how they're dedicated to this thought that our founding fathers created, you're missing out. You got to see it up close. It's amazing. And that's what I have.
Volunteer, please.
Volunteer.
Please come and help and volunteer.
I talked to some of the poll workers today about their experience, and what I'm voicing is what I hear from them too.
They're gonna be working the 9 days?
Some of them volunteered, so it made me feel more comfortable. I have to tell you that.
Yeah. Anyways, all right. I'm happy to entertain any motions for adjournment if we're there.
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Support.
Surprise our clerk is sporting.
I was going to say it.
Motion by Brown, support by Cody to adjourn the meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign.
I
Thanks
got a
all.
lot of